Qlik Dork back again. Today I've got episode 1940, and it's going to be one of my favorites because I love murder mysteries, folks. And today we're going to be talking about the Butler did it. Yes, the Butler did it. It's not really going to be a murder mystery talk show. We're always talking about data in clickies. And today my guest is Goran Sander, and you'll find out momentarily why I named this The Butler Did It. Goran has been a partner ambassador for us since we started the program in 21 and was a luminary 5 times, which is 4 times more than me, more like 4.10 or 11, because I was a luminary for about a month prior to joining Qlik, and they took my luminary away from me. I hadn't even gotten my swag bag or anything. I had to go to Boston as an employee, and I picked my swag bag up there because they were kind enough to at least still give me my swag. Goran has lots of ways you can reach out to him. Reach out to him at LinkedIn. You can bring up his website. I'm going to share more information about that with you in a second. You could reach out to him on email. And Goran, you're also somewhat active on Qlik community, right?
I try to be. It's a great source of information to begin with, but then also asking questions. I mean, there are always people who know more than you do yourself. So it's asking questions, but then also contributing back. I mean, that's an important part.
Nice. Yeah. And that's, I think online, you're kind of called the Mountain Dude. Is that right?
Yep.
And now looking at these profile pictures you gave me, I have no idea why people would call you the Mountain Dude. Just makes no sense.
I like mountains, huh?
All right. Go ahead and can you tell me the name of your company? Because I know I'm going to chop that up.
So Ptarmigan Labs is the one-man company that I'm running, doing consulting services. And well, Ptarmigan is a bird living in the mountains, rock ptarmigan, and happens to be one of my favorite birds. And I like mountains, so it's a good name.
That's very cool. One of my very good programming friends had a software company. It was called Labrador Software. And once I got to visit his house, dude had Labradors. And I mean, we are 35 years from those first meetings. And dude, he's always had Labradors. Like that's always been his brand. So I enjoy, I thank you for sharing that thing about those birds. Right here, you notice, folks, Ptarmigan Labs is the home of Butler and SenseOps. Now, you might not understand the word SenseOps, so I'm going to convert that for the non-Qlik Sense people. It's DevOps. And what I've loved about following you for years and following Butler and using Butler is Butler was a great use of what Qlik Sense was meant to be. It was a non-software box because it was open with an open API that Qlik itself used. And the whole intention was so that folks out there like Goran could create the DevOps or SenseOps environment that they needed that fit their strategies and their people and their processes, as opposed to us saying everybody in the whole wide world should do it this way. And so that's kind of how you got started with that. Is that right? Just using open APIs?
Pretty much. Going back 6 or 7 years, maybe 8 even, we had a need to start Qlik Sense reload tasks from an external system. And this was very early days for Qlik Sense. But yeah, some database was populated with new data, and we needed to load it into Qlik, and we didn't want to wait for a scheduled reload to happen. Yep. So using the APIs, exposing them via a small microservice that was running that anyone could use. And so that was the first part of the Butler, the original Butler. But very quickly, we also realized that we could get notifications when reloads failed, for example.
Okay.
So the Butler grew quite quickly with adding more features that were needed at the time. So by now it's a fairly it's like a Swiss Army knife for a Sense admin. It does a bit of everything, really.
Nice. And what version of Butler are you on now? What's your most recent?
Oh, good question. 9.6.2 maybe.
Nice.
I don't quote me on that, but something like that.
Nice. I'm not sure what my server has on it. I may have to upgrade.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that one on 9.62. I'm probably not on that version.
So the latest is always available from GitHub for all the different open source tools that we are talking about here today. Everything is available from GitHub for download. Nice.
That's awesome. Would you be able to do a little bit of a demo and show people what Butler is?
Oh, absolutely. The most common use case for Butler is probably these days, at least, is reload monitoring. So detecting failed reloads in client managed Qlik Sense, and then alerting when something goes wrong. And when I talk to people about and try to explain what the Butler is, I usually ask them, so if you're a Sense admin, if you're responsible for a client managed Sense environment, how would you like to be notified that something went wrong? By your end users, or maybe days in retrospect?
Yep.
Or 5 seconds after it happened? Of course, they say, "Oh, I got it." So that's really the USP for a tool like Butler. So I can just, if we're going to touch on Butler quickly,
yeah,
I can show what let's see how to do this. Share screen. And so you can see my screen.
Yep.
So this is a reload failed alert email coming from the Butler. So these would then be sent out maybe 5-10 seconds after reload failing in client managed Qlik Sense. And the beauty here is that not only do we get information about that something failed, but we also get all the metadata associated with that failure, including the script log. So
nice.
A Sense admin or a developer who gets this can immediately see that, this failed because of some URL wasn't correct or something. Corrective actions can be taken much, much quicker than otherwise. The option would be to dig into the log files on the server. That can be quite time consuming as well. So
okay, yeah. What I never like about getting I get an error message, and then it's like, okay, why did this fail? Did the user change a file name? Did they delete a file? Did my database password not work anymore? Yeah, it'd be much nicer to just have that right in the email so that I know it's something I need to look at, or I need to say, hey, you changed your file name again for the 15th time this month.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop editing the file name.
And then, so email is nice, but in an enterprise setting, you might want to get that information into Jira or like a tool like New Relic or something.
Yep.
But Jira is common, so you can create an incident ticket automatically when something breaks, and maybe assign it to
Butler does that for you.
It can do that, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Very nice, very nice. And that so in the SaaS world, they probably use an automation or something to go ahead and create that. But in client managed, where we don't have Qlik automation, you've got that ability there to do that. And how would they get started with Butler?
So that is a good question, and with a lot of answers. You can the easiest is probably to just download the binary. There are precompiled binaries for Windows and Linux and Mac OS.
Okay.
And there's a template config file. Then just disable everything except the reload alerts.
Okay.
And there are some reasonably good getting started instructions at butler.petarmingalabs.com. And if you are on a Docker environment, that's probably even better, because then it's a one-liner to get started and just bring everything up.
So you already got it out in a containerized.
Yeah.
And they can just install through a, some sudo script or something like that.
Right.
Crazy.
So I mean, Docker is probably for the slightly more technically inclined people, but if you do have that skill set, it's superb. Really.
Dude, that's crazy. That's crazy. And the reload handling isn't the only thing Butler does, right?
No, it's it does a bit of everything, really. Let's see if we can bring that up again.
Because I think what I used was like some telemetry things.
Right. So let's see here. So the Butler is just one of the tools in the what's usually called the Butler family. Butler being the first and more, it's a multi-purpose tool, really. So it does things like reload task monitoring and also Windows service monitoring. So you can get alerts if a service stops for some reason. And in client manage, obviously, it runs on Windows Server, and things are stable, but sometimes things happen. It has a scheduler. So if you want to start reload tasks, it can be done from Butler. A key value store for passing parameters between reload tasks.
Okay.
And you can even interact with, in a controlled way, you can interact with the file system. So you can say that reload scripts within apps should be allowed to delete files in certain directories, for example.
Okay.
So that's Butler. And then Butler SOS is more geared towards real-time monitoring.
Okay.
So there are two different monitoring use cases. One is more
still Butler. I just didn't realize you had two different names for him.
I have a bunch of different Butler tools.
Yeah, that's the so there we go. Now we're cooking.
So Butler SOS is for real-time monitoring, looking at things like how much RAM is available in the server, what's the CPU load, which users are active right now in apps, and it's logging in and out, and so on. Close to real time, so there's usually a few seconds delay, but that will then give you nice looking charts in Grafana, for example, showing CPU loads and users and everything. And using a tool like Butler SOS, you can, for example, monitoring memory consumption on a server.
Okay.
You know, with the Qlik Sense and Qlik View, you want all memory to be used. You load apps into memory, and all the memory should be used, really, ideally. Yep. And then when something doesn't fit anymore, a new app is loaded, the oldest app is kicked out.
Right.
And sometimes there are cases where the amount of memory used on a server goes from almost full to zero instantly. And that is an indication that something crashed. Maybe the engine service crashed, maybe the proxy crashed, something crashed on the server. There's really no way of detecting this except looking at the memory consumption on the server.
Yeah.
So I've seen cases where this happened many, many times per day on a busy Qlik Sense environment, and people complained about poor performance and everything. And it was because the services, the Windows services, kept crashing. And by using then Butler SOS, we could detect this and get exact timestamps when it happened, and investigate and fix it.
Nice.
It's I usually say that
not only are we seeing it real time, like a real time graphing,
pretty much
that's being stored so that we could retrospectively say, hey, here's exactly when it happened.
Exactly. And
so kind of like a detective work, tracking that Butler down. I knew it was good. We're going to come back. That Butler's going to be guilty.
Here we are at Butler. Yeah, maybe Sherlock Holmes is next name we're going to use here. Usually, there's no need to save data for more than like a couple of weeks. Like data every 15 seconds or every 10 seconds, we might store for 2 weeks and then throw it away.
So in other words, giving your administrators long enough, they could be on vacation and still get this thing resolved when they come back.
And go back and do a retrospective analysis.
Yeah,
if
I think
needed.
I think that's brilliant. Yeah, that you don't want to fill up the machine and shut the machine down with logs.
No, no.
But yeah, a couple of weeks gives you long enough. Is that controllable by the admins running it? Can they choose how long?
Yeah, so there's a configurable retention
Okay,
rate.
perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. And then visualizations is usually done in Grafana. Grafana is sort of the go-to choice for time series data visualizations these days. So just using standard tools out there. And the idea of all the tools, all the open source tools I've created is really to make use of the established tools and best practices out there, rather than inventing stuff again.
Now, just tell me, because people are going to ask, why didn't you just use Sense visualizations?
Good question. Because in the case of Butler SOS, that's time series data. Every data point has a timestamp associated with it.
Yep.
And that's a special kind of data that once you need to visualize it, it's as good as Qlik Sense is, it's not superb for time series data. It works, but there are tools that are dedicated for it. For example,
and I think what you mean by that, we can show time series.
Yep.
Right. This is really real time. Like those lines are moving and they're scrolling off the screen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that
I don't know if Grafana has some.
That's the key thing I wanted to make sure that people understood.
Yeah. Absolutely, and there are also databases like InfluxDB, which is a time series database. It's not a SQL database, so it's instead they have their own query language, and the whole structure of the database is tailored for time series data.
Right. And you said these are open source, so there's no licensing. If somebody says I want to use Butler SOS, they don't have to think, well, now I got to go get a license for this, and I got to get a license for this. These are open source tools.
Yep.
That they're welcome to use.
Yep. Okay. Absolutely. Both InfluxDB and Grafana are open source. Those companies also have SaaS offerings. So if you want someone else to host it for you, you can pay for that. But
cool.
As long as you host it yourself, it's open source.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's sort of the monitoring side of things. Then there are other tools like Ctrl-Q, Ctrl-Q NR that we get back to, and a few others that are more geared towards solving specific use cases. It might be something that's tedious or error-prone, like Ctrl-Q here. That's a command line tool that can, for example, import reload tasks from Excel files. You define the reload tasks in the Excel file. So you do that once, and then you have a single command on the command line that imports 200 reload tasks.
Okay.
Sets up the reload chains and everything. So that can be a huge time saver if you need to do this more than once.
Or move environment to environment to environment.
Exactly. So for example, if you have a dev, test, and production environment.
Nobody would have that. Just do it all in prod. Just do it all in prod.
That does happen as well, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but this is...
I was only kidding. Don't blame it on me.
It's, I mean, that's probably the most common scenario for client managed, to have a single environment that you do everything in. I would guess. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Okay. And the Ctrl-Q NR, the one, scroll up a little bit there, buddy. That's the one I really want to look at.
Yeah.
You shared a very interesting image on LinkedIn recently with this. It looked like a flow charting thing.
Yeah.
And man, I was like, I can't believe I haven't talked to the Mountain Dude by now, but now we got to make it happen.
Yeah.
Because I was really hooked with, it was like a process flow, and it looked like you were kind of flow charting what you wanted, and you made it happen behind the scenes.
Yeah. So Ctrl-Q NR is what's usually called a low-code environment.
Okay.
Or rather, the things I created, the Ctrl-Q part, is a module that can be used within the Node-RED ecosystem.
Okay, so Node-RED is what?
So Node-RED is a low-code platform. It came out of IBM some 7 or 8 years ago. They later on open sourced it, and so it's like Qlik Cloud automation, but on a more generic level.
Right. Okay.
And the beauty of Node-RED is that it's been around for quite some time, and it's very stable. So most people would argue that it's only for like prototype work or proof of concept. And to some extent, I agree. But I've also had workloads running in Node-RED for years, 24/7.
Wow.
Ingesting hundreds of, well, probably more than 100 million messages totally, without any problems whatsoever.
Man.
So it's
and then again, that's open source.
That's open source. Yeah.
Okay.
So I wouldn't put a company's most critical business processes in here, but let's say that you are doing a migration from client managed Qlik Sense into cloud, and
there's lots of customers out there doing it.
Exactly, and that's sort of the reason why this came about as well. Then you probably have a need to you have a period where you still have client managed and you have some things in cloud, and you need to start app reloads in cloud from client managed.
Yep.
Very common, but not entirely easy to do. So by using a middleware like Node-RED with Ctrl-Q on top of it, it's suddenly as easy as just drag and drop, really, and configure.
So now I see that it's kind of like a flow charter.
Yep.
How do you actually, when I flow chart something out there, how do you actually make that talk to sense? Like where's the connection piece between a flow chart and Qlik Sense?
So Node-RED has a concept of modules that are, or plugins.
Okay.
And there are about 4,617 of them.
Okay.
At this very moment. And a module can be, for example, I don't know, a search for SQL. There are then modules doing all kinds of SQL-related things, connected to databases, building queries, whatnot. And similarly, then I have created a Ctrl-Q NR. NR stands for Node-RED.
Okay.
Module.
And so if somebody was using Node-RED, doesn't go out to your site, they could search for that module, or do they need to download your module and then do an install?
Good question. But the answer is that everything can be done from within Node-RED, because Ctrl-Q is part of the Node-RED repository.
So Node-RED's the open source thing. Ctrl-Q NR is the plugin that you've created that's out there.
Yep.
That they'd be able to just install and then begin doing these things. And does this work with Qlik Client Managed, Qlik Cloud, or either one based on how you configure it?
It works with both. So if you have installed this plugin or this module that I have already done here, on the left here is the palette, which is all the nodes that I have currently installed in my Node-RED environment.
Okay.
So they do all kinds of things like inject nodes, like this one here starts subflow. These connections here is called a flow.
Right.
And there are things to do delays and all kinds of weird and wonderful things. And at the bottom here then is a set of Qlik related nodes.
Aha. And that's once they've installed your plugin, they would have that palette on the left. Then.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
So I thought that, cool. Let's seeing is believing. So let's start by looking at client managed Qlik, Qlik Sense, and take a look at get information about all the apps on the Qlik Sense server. So I'm gonna click this button here.
Okay.
Getting apps retrieved, and then on the right, these output nodes here will send information to a debug view.
Okay.
Right. So the results.
I loved how I saw a catch block, and now I'm seeing the debug.
Yeah.
You're a real developer, man. You're a real developer.
Well, you don't have to do to use the catch blocks, but you need to get the information out there somehow.
No, but
see what it looks
seeing
like.
that block on there, and you've already got this thing out here in a debug window. I love it like that.
Yeah. So there are 339.
Understand you got to debug stuff. Anyway.
Yeah, 339 apps on this server, and we get metadata for all of them. This is coming straight from the Qlik repository service.
I love how those are wrapped, even just in the blocks of 10, rather than me scrolling through 339 times. That's great.
Yeah. And that's all Node-RED. I can't take any credit for that, so that's all Node-RED. But it's so that is sort of the most basic demo we can do. But if we want to recreate that ourselves, I would take this QSEOW, Qlik Sense Enterprise on Windows -app, this node here. I would drop it like that. I would take an inject node like that, and a debug node like that. I would connect them. And there's this red pyramid here, triangle, indicating that this node here, the app node for client managed, is not correctly configured. So I'm going to double click. And all right, I have to specify the Sense server, obviously. The system has to know where to get the data from.
Where to go, yeah.
Yeah, so I have already configured one. I'm selecting that. Okay. And this particular node, the app node for client managed, it has a set of different operations. You can read app metadata, update, delete, do different things.
Okay.
But we want to read metadata. So I click OK, done, and deploy. And this is, by the way, running locally on my computer here in a Docker container. So, but it runs on Windows and Mac and Windows and mainframes and everything. I think it actually does run on mainframes as well. Node-RED is extremely portable. So if I now click here again, we just recreated the demo we just had before.
Well, that did take you like 10 seconds to drag or drop those 3 things and choose the server name. Yeah, that was really hard work. I had to twist your arm to get you to do that much work in a day.
Yeah. So it's very visual to use Node-RED. Maybe even more so than Qlik Automation. Qlik Automation has other benefits because it's so close to Qlik Sense Cloud, so well integrated. But the visual nature of Node-RED is makes it easy to get started, in my opinion. You can do then things like doing updates to apps, for example, adding tags to apps. You can delete apps and so on. And
now, what sort of target, as we think of that, like tags and things like that, what sort of targets could I take the data? Could I read all the master measures? Master dimensions out and stick them into something? What types of targets can I use besides just visualizing them in the debugger, the console type window there? Right.
So because we're still in very, very early days of this tool, I actually started working on this like 3-4 years ago, an early prototype, and then something else came up and I never finished it. So the work we're looking at now is probably like 3 weeks old, that past 3 weeks or so. So far there are not a whole lot of different nodes.
Not from Qlik Sense. I mean from Node-RED in general.
Oh, okay.
Like if I brought in the thing to say, hey, get me all the master items, Can I store it into an Excel file or stick it into a database somewhere?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, for example, here, the list of apps that we got here.
Yep.
We could send that to a file.
Okay. Perfect.
Like this.
Yep.
And then we'd have to say that, oh, the file resides at some path and so on.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I was just looking like, man, I'm just thinking through, hey, I need to document all my master items.
Yeah. That could be a use case. Then we would have to add
that's a super easy way to do it.
A master item. That's actually a good idea, to create a master item node here that let us pull out master item metadata and definitions.
So this Ctrl-Q NR stuff, you're just kind of in the infancy of it.
Yeah.
And I just gave you a brilliant idea for your next version.
It's maybe QSOW-Dalton. Next node's going to be called.
Put a little bow. I want a bow tie icon, man.
Oh, I don't have one of those. Maybe you can create one.
Yeah. I need a bow tie icon. That'd be appropriate.
So, what else? We can take a look at tasks. Reload tasks is probably one of the prime, where you look at client managed to cloud migrations to start off reload tasks on either side. So we're still on client managed here, looking at what can be done.
Okay.
But looking at reload tasks, we probably don't want to start every reload task on a client managed server. That would be resource intensive.
Yeah.
So if you look at the task node here, we can say that, all right, let's start some reload tasks. Let's start an external program task. And let's try to start a non-existing task. This is a fake task ID.
Okay.
And so this is a different node. This is a task node. The previous one was an app node. And we want to start that. There's only one operation. And we want to use the task IDs defined here, but you could also then send them in an incoming message from a previous node.
Okay.
So I'm gonna delete that and start the task. And nothing much happens except that, well, task started.
It's telling you it started.
Yeah. And one of the task IDs was fake. The system recognized this and says it doesn't exist. The system recognized that one was an external program task. And there were 2 reload tasks started. So the logic here, the logic lies of talking to Qlik Sense, the client manager in this case, lies in this node here. That's where all the network communication and so on happens.
Nice.
But then looking at what Node-RED can do, you could, next example here.
I'm really excited about this one. I'm really excited about this one.
So for example, if let's say some system drops a text file, a CSV file or something on in a folder somewhere.
Yep.
So the first part here just updates a text file.
Yep.
Second part, this node monitors a directory and fires a message when some change occurred.
Right.
And well, what happens then is that as one or more tasks, sense tasks are started, they could be starting or reloading apps that then load from new data from these directories. Yep. So this is a real use case that could be quite useful.
I tell you what, if I could go back in time 8 years and still be at the health system I worked at, we had nearly a full-time person dealing with FTPs with different health partners, doctors' offices, governmental organizations. We were constantly getting FTPs, moving the files around, and it was inevitably a pain because it was schedule this job to be reloaded, but if it was scheduled at 8, but that partner didn't get their file there to 8:05, I was out of luck, and then it would, I'd hear from end users, we didn't get our data. Like, well, my job ran at 8, blame it on the partner, and we could blame, but the reality was we needed that data. And so I would have to go manually run tasks. This is a dream in many environments to be able to say, look, I don't want to schedule my job. I don't want to have it running every 5 minutes and burning CPU cycles to spin and load nothing. I can't do an incremental load if there's nothing to increment from.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So this is fantastic. It could run it, bam, go kick that job off when the file comes. We had oftentimes where they would say, oh, the file was wrong, we've sent you a new one.
Yeah.
And this would catch that new one at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and reload that app so that it was fresh, and I could be out and enjoying a nice cold Mountain Dew somewhere instead of having to reload apps.
Yeah. And if we look at things today, I mean, there are a surprising amount of FTPs still going on, to be honest.
Yes.
You would think that that's all gone, but you have a drop zone on Amazon somewhere, or Google GCP, and you drop a file there and something's supposed to happen. But this could actually cater for those scenarios. Absolutely.
And you've got a schedule, but I love this. So this has the concept of webhooks. Just like we see with QAA was really my first view of webhooks. But you can even use webhooks now in a client managed environment or something.
Pretty much. This node here is effectively webhook. It sets up a listening endpoint where Node-RED, this is a Node-RED node, so it listens for an incoming call to /Butler demo /QSEOE task 1.
Yep.
When a message comes in, one or more tasks are started.
Nice.
And we should run this, of course, so we can see that it looks. So the first line here just it does a fake call, an actual call to this endpoint here. So it should kick it off.
Yep.
So call made, call detected down here, task started, and result is
wow. That's neat. That's neat.
So that was all client managed. If we scroll to the right here in the top here, we have another section with cloud use cases. Many of the nodes that we have so far reflect one-to-one, both for client managed and cloud. So here we can see, we can get information about all apps in the cloud tenant. 6 different apps in this tenant, and all the metadata and everything.
Very nice.
And do app reloads just as before. There's no real, the notion of a task doesn't really exist in cloud in the same way as in client managed, but app reloads obviously exist. So we can start a reload. App reload queued, and again we specify an app ID, different kinds of authentication, API key or OAuth can be used.
So you've already got our cloud's machine to machine OAuth 2. Nice.
Yeah.
Digging it.
And yeah, so it's very similar on both client managed and cloud sides.
And I would imagine that you would be able, especially for cloud, to call an automation. If there's already automations that do other things, you could call those automations from within this Node-RED environment, right?
Absolutely. If we create a QS Cloud -automation node, for example.
Okay.
Then we could kick off automations in cloud, or we could modify them or delete them or create them or whatever.
Very cool.
Anything that's possible to do using the APIs, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because we could force a webhook, or we could call they've got a REST endpoint to call that one specific thing and then pass parameters that you've pulled from here. A use case that I know a customer needs that I just talked to someone yesterday. They're going to be changing their connection string. So they're changing the connector that was used. Do you load the load script as part of any one of your blocks yet? When you load the apps?
No.
No, okay.
But the information is there, so it's just a matter of pulling it
Yeah,
out.
because I could see that it would be neat. Hey, go load all my apps. Tell me any app that uses this connection string.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that I know what apps I've got to go touch manually.
Yeah, good use case.
Cool.
Each of these nodes here, the different ones, they might take anything between 20 minutes to create and maybe a couple of hours. So it's not a huge work to create new nodes.
Now so your plugin, is that out on GitHub? Do you have that out on GitHub as well?
Yep, absolutely.
So some other smart guy somewhere in some other part of the world could oh man, what's the word for spinning off another chain?
Fork.
Yeah, they could fork your Ctrl-Q NR and add some other nodes or something.
Right. So here is the GitHub repository.
Wow. Not only have you done it, you've made life easy for people, and you're like literally handing them the code.
Pretty much. That's open source.
Shoot. Yeah.
Some people call it stupid, and others call it nice.
It is nice. Yeah. That's very nice of you.
Yeah.
So Goran, this is all great. How do you make a living, man? You're giving all this great stuff away. How do you even make a living?
I got a day job. This is all evenings and weekends.
Nice.
No, but I like build stuff. I like to create stuff. Always done. So.
And then I imagine these are things that you end up using then within your clients.
Absolutely, and to be honest, after doing things like this, like the Butler tools and maybe this as well, we'll see. It does act as a door opener when talking to clients. So it's a reason to get talking, and maybe sometimes it results in new jobs. Yeah.
And are you buried in customers and contracts now, or if somebody's watching this and says, "Man, I need a really good Sense developer. I need to get a hold of this guy." Are you open to new contracts? Or
I always like to talk to new people, so it's
okay. Cool.
That's as much of a salesman as I am.
Good.
But it's all reach out, of course. I mean, who knows what's gonna happen?
Nice.
Another nice demo. This is the one you showed initially, I think. Maybe wrap up with this one because it's kind of a neat one. There's a node here that deals with user information in cloud.
Yep.
And if we can use it then to pull user information for all the users that are defined in a cloud tenant.
Okay.
And in this case, there are 4 users here. I won't open them because there are some sensitive stuff in there. And
but would it be the ID and a name or something?
Yeah, ID and name and tenant info and credentials.
So if I was looking to code section access, I would be able to use this, get all the user IDs and their names so that I know who I'm dealing with.
And that's the assumption that the API key that you created has
access to get that level of information.
Yeah. So there is access control built in here as well, thanks to Qlik Sense Cloud, obviously, how they do it.
Yep.
And so if we take this data here, these 4 users in the tenant, and think, what can we do with this? Well, we can check which of these users have an email address. And because some of them will be like machine to machine.
Sure. Yep.
Users or bot users and so on.
Okay.
Not all of them will be physical people.
Could they be butlers?
They could. Yeah. Guess. So what we can do, we actually skip like the middle section here and go straight to the bottom, is we can send an email to all tenant users that have an email address.
Okay.
Let's say that you have an upcoming service window.
Yep.
Sense Cloud will be down for maintenance next week. Or like a training session.
Right.
So maybe we have all this information in Active Directory and some other email group, but
if that distribution list was kept up to date.
Yeah. But here we get all the people that with actual access that exist in the Sense tenant.
Wow.
So we get that list as before. We start the flow here, and we get all the users. And here's then one message coming out of this node here.
Yep.
One JSON with all the users in it, like what we see on the right.
Yep.
And then we do some, we're tweaking the data a little bit so it's better suited for sending emails later on. And we split this single message that comes here into multiple messages. So one message coming out of this node here for every user. So there should be 4 messages coming out of output.
Okay.
And the switch node here is where the magic happens. It's not that complex. It checks, is there an email property in the message? If it's not empty, there's an email. Send it to output 1. Pass it on, basically. If there's not an email property, just drop it.
Okay.
And it goes down here, and we add some message body and subjects and everything to the email, and we send an email with Gmail.
Oh, man.
And also check here, we reassemble these multiple messages into a single message so we can see how many users are there with email addresses. So if this works, every email address in this tenant should get an email.
Yeah, you don't have to run that one.
All 4 of them. Well, what we see here is that there's one user with an email address.
Okay, hopefully that's you.
That's me.
All right, and now I feel better.
Yeah.
I didn't want the CEO to get some message that the system's being shut down.
No, that was the only one. But the nice part is that we can use HTML. So let's see if I have it.
Now, seeing these different templates that you have on the screen, I kind of like that interface that I just click the one that I want to run at that time. Have you taken any of those templates and made those templates available? Like what I'm seeing on the screen, could I download that anywhere to get started with Node-RED like now?
Yeah. So this flow, for example, it can be found on my website in a blog post.
Okay.
And
what format is that stuff in? Is that a JSON thing or?
That's JSON. So for example, exporting from here is done like this, and you copy the clipboard.
Man.
This clipboard. So if you take that information from my website and import it instead, you just paste it in like this and click import, and then
that's cool. Okay. So very much just like Qlik application automation.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's very similar.
That's nice. Do you want to dream with me for a second?
Dream on, yeah, of course.
We're dreaming. We're dreaming. We're dreaming. I right click something here, and I use generative AI, and I ask it a question like, build me a flow that would get all the users in my tenant, send an email to users that actually have a email address, and voila, up comes a framework with the blue dots. I got to connect to my server. I'd have to, put my API key in or pick my security method. But I think that stuff, since it's text based, I don't see that that's all that far off in the future. Am I missing something?
No, you're spot on. I mean, I have tried to generate Node-RED flows using ChatGPT, for example. It's not quite there yet, but it's with some manual tweaking, it can be used, absolutely.
And I'd imagine, because your objects obviously are different, it would be the kind of a concept of a privately trained LLM, right? Like, if Node-RED wanted to provide that, you would have to give it the vector information, let's say.
Yeah.
So in addition to the other coding things you've done in GitHub, I'm imagining there's going to be some way of saying, now I want to interject vectors for privately training and customizing on the Qlik Sense cloud nodes, the Qlik Sense nodes, backwards compatible with Qlik View nodes. I don't know what all you're going to go for. Yep. Does that, I mean, that doesn't seem like we're really all that far off from that type of environment, right?
No, and to be honest with you, when I creating these nodes, I have what's called GitHub Copilot.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Microsoft or GitHub's AI buddy. So, and it's scarily good, I would say. No, but the
nice.
Now they have 5, 10 nodes here.
Okay.
The first 4 or 5 nodes took a lot of manual work, but the last 5 nodes, I got so many suggestions when creating them. So I got big chunks of code just suggested for me, and I just picked, okay, fine.
So fine. It was learning from you that you're going to add these properties and this thing and that thing. Yep. You're going to call that.
Yeah.
It was learning from you what you needed to do for Sense.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's very cool.
Very, very cool.
The and the notification email that I showed previously.
Yep.
I am so bad at HTML. I'm absolutely useless. So I asked ChatGPT to, please create an HTML and CSS formatted email with these general ideas. And
oh my gosh,
I got the email for this, or the HTML for this. So
thank you for admitting that. I was like, wow, that's really nice for an email message. Yeah, I'm not all that great with HTML. Worse with CSS stuff.
Yeah,
because then it just starts getting 18,000 things deep. Do you want to stop sharing your screen for a second, Goran?
Of course.
So I want to take this time and thank you for giving me your time. I can't believe I've been such a knucklehead and haven't had you on before. The Sense Ops things and seeing the real-time telemetry was fantastic all along. I should have had you on just to show that. But this Node-RED and Ctrl-Q NR flow, man, that's really cool. That's everybody. I'm sure you've seen my automation post. I'm big on the automation space for the very same thing as I talked about before. Sense is an open API. There is no box. It is open. Extend it. Do what you want. And you're basically giving people the same type of things they could do with Qlik application automation from the cloud, but you're also giving that the same ability to them in client managed if that's something that they've been needing. You've given people the opportunity to they're open source tools, right? You're helping people try to manage their DevOps in the ways that make sense with the flows, with the tasks that they need for their environment. I think that's fantastic. You are such a great partner to Qlik and to other people around the world. I know I'm not the only person that's been following you for years and reading your blog on your site and thinking like, God, how does this guy think of these things? So I appreciate you being here. Any last words for everybody in the Qlik Dork cast world, all 5 of them?
Yeah. Don't be a stranger. Reach
Cool.
out, always good meeting people. So let's connect.
Nice. And as always, I hope that y'all have a great day.